Hey everyone, Dan here. We're in the afternoon hours of Thursday, June 24th. Today we're going to take an updated look at Clover Health. Before we get into it, if you enjoy these videos, please hit the like and subscribe button. It helps a lot. And let's jump right in. So, today is going to be a mix of things. First, I want to talk about a prediction that I had tweeted out a week ago about Clover and sort of how I was looking at it and what I was seeing that made me make the prediction, and then sort of like how that prediction fared. And then we'll go and we'll take a look at the data and the chart and sort of like recap where it is and what we can look for in the days ahead with Clover. All right, so right now we're sitting here. Let me pull this over so you can see it. Almost 100 million in volume. And, you know, with the average volume being 52 million in a day, it's been a pretty crazy day. Super crazy in the pre-market. You had this big run up in the pre-market. And, you know, we had a volume of almost 1 million during this 5-minute span at 9:05. And over 1 million at 9:10, and almost 1 million again at 9:15. So super high volume in the morning. I mean, if you compare that to open at 9:40, there was 5 million. So definitely much more after the market opened. But then, you know, by just before lunchtime, so like 11:25 in the morning, we're already down to like 1.6 million. And so throughout the day since then, we've had several 5-minute periods that have been well below, sometimes half or even a third of what the volume was in 5-minute spans during the pre-market. So I wanted to talk through sort of a bit of my prediction and the parts that I think I may have gotten right and the parts that I think I may have gotten wrong. And let me pull out to the 5-day here. So we had this huge run up from like 1:30 in the afternoon on the 22nd. We were trading at about 11.72. It closed at 11.72 all the way up to 15.25 just before open this morning. Interestingly enough, 15.25 is exactly the resistance zone that we had plotted on the chart several days ago, or maybe even weeks ago at this point, as well as where it bounced right there, 13.48 this morning. So the chart's holding up well. But let me talk about sort of this run here and a bunch of what I think happened. So let's scoot over here. This was the tweet that I put out, and this was put out June 17th, so a week ago today. I think CLOV might rocket on 6/24, which is today, putting it here as an experiment. And basically, here's what I saw. We flip over to the SEC, fails to deliver for CLOV, and I know a bunch of you are already going to know where this is going, but if you look right here at this spike, May 24th, fails to deliver, were huge compared to previous day and days. 1.2 million fails to deliver just on that day. So I then went through the process of trying to count days and figure out settlement periods and stuff like that. That's what got me to June 24th. I think the error in my ways was, if we look here, fails to deliver, two broker dealers, so blah blah blah, your broker and the broker of the seller. It's a trade that's not been settled for 30 days of the trade date. So and then there's like this section in this Cornell Cornell law link that says, let me just find it here again, calendar day, on the 35th consecutive calendar day following. So they have 35 calendar days. They're talking about something slightly differently. But anyway, I was trying to decipher between trade days versus calendar days based on what I was getting here. And then also there's this regulation, the show regulation on the SEC sites that talks about all these T plus settlement dates. And you'll see here, they're often talking about settlement dates as business days. T+4 for short fails, T+6 for long sale fails. So it's either a failure to deliver the share or a failure to deliver the the cash for the fail. Short fail is you didn't deliver the shares. Long fail is you didn't deliver the cash. So looking through this information and seeing that big spike on CLOV, is what made me put that tweet out. And I think what I got slightly wrong is 30 days from May 24th, calendar days, I believe was actually yesterday. And so that's part of what I got wrong. Let's double check that with Siri. What was the date 30 days ago?
It was Tuesday, May 25th, 2021.
Right. So we're a day off. What's the date 30 calendar days from May 24th, 2021?
Sorry, I don't know when that is.
What? What's the date 30 days after May 24th, 2021?
It was Wednesday, June 23rd, 2021.
There we go. Wasn't that really worth? So June 23rd. So if we flip back to the chart and we go June 23rd. Now what happened as we let up and went through June 23rd? Well, there was this crazy run up from, again, like 1172 all the way up to over 14, and then pulled back a little bit, and then another huge run up. So I think that this was all still a big part of those fails to deliver being settled. And I don't know what the reality is. I mean, I can try to find what the parsing through this info is just so incredibly challenging. But I can try to find out that if these were being provided in the pre-market hours today, when there was this huge run-up, and even this huge run-up here after hours, and then in the very wee hours of the morning, at like 5 a.m., 4 a.m., all of that running up, I don't know if that would suffice before the start of the trading day. I believe so, based on what I've read, but some folks who are watching this might know. Feel free to leave a comment. That's sort of what I have been wondering. So it was like a slight miscounting of the days, but also I wasn't sure if we were talking about trading or calendar. It seemed like there were sort of like differing pieces of information in different places, but this was part of the experiment, was to see, okay, when does that actually play out? And yes, yesterday I could have jumped in and been like, oh, this is it, this is what I was talking about, but I still wanted to see what was happening today. And when I saw that huge run up this morning, I mean, I wasn't like watching it every single second, but I saw it was up over 9% at a certain point this morning. It may have climbed even higher than that. And so I thought that was like, that we were just like off to the races. So like digging through some additional documentation and trying to figure out what may have happened, I do still think that is a big part of what played out here. This really unexpected spike in fails to deliver. I mean, that hadn't happened for over a month, and 30 calendar days since then, being June 23rd, puts us with this big run up. And then, like I said, the question is, if those are delivered by the broker dealer that failed to deliver them in the first place, if they're delivered before the market opens for normal trading hours on the 31st calendar day, is that still sufficient? If so, then that would account for this continuous run up here. And what I'm going to guess is happening is like they probably started closing positions around here because they're trying to get in at the lowest possible price point to, buy shares to then deliver on the IOU that has come due. So this all also presupposes that any of these broker dealers that are participating in this activity, this failure activity, even care that there's rules and regulations around this. But that's, like I said, that's why it's an experiment, and I thought it was something interesting to look at, and I still think it's interesting, and I still think that it's mighty convenient timing for this much of a run to kind of come relatively out of nowhere. I mean, it was just on this big downtrend all the way down to 11, and then this big run up, maybe that was also some brokers trying to close out before they had to on the following day and thought, okay, I can catch it at this super low price. And so there was a bunch of that, and then it pulled back, and then a bunch were like, okay, this is my time. I have to jump in now, and started closing out, and then continued closing out all the way through just before open today. So I'm going to keep looking into this stuff, digging through a bunch of these things. Some of this stuff are things that I've been aware of for a while, but some of them are still like coming in as new things that I'm researching, pieces of information that I'm trying to cobble together. So, definitely if this is interesting to you, do your own research. It's not easy to get through. It's not easy to find. And even when you do find it, it can be quite challenging to try to figure out what in the world it means by different sort of like days that it talks about. Are these business days? Are these calendar days? What are these days? But it still is an interesting thing to do. So I'm going to give myself like a 7 out of 10 on this one. If that's even like fair or allowed, because I obviously missed the date because I wasn't sure on how to calculate the counting. But if we go by calendar, like it appears to be on the Cornell sites and in some other sites, seem to be pointing to calendar, not business days, then that would have put us here. And then also I wasn't accounting for, if that was the case, does closing that position or delivering on that failed to deliver in the pre-market count, because the following trading day has not yet officially opened. That's going to be my suspicion. I'm going to try to look into where to get those answers. Okay, so let's leave that all behind and let's go and just do an update on CLOV quickly in the chart and in the short data to see where things stand. Before we do that, I just want to mention I do have a few things. One, if you are interested in helping grow the channel at all, I definitely appreciate that. I appreciate folks sharing these videos on Twitter, Reddit, Facebook, anywhere else that you share stock-related activity or information. And then also, I have a free email list sign up in the description below. I don't have that email going out yet, but I plan to have it up and running in the next couple of months. But I'm just collecting emails for the time being and through a Google form, just so that I have like a starting point. And then lastly, I'm putting 2 links in the description below. One is for a broker that I use who is really great, very simple, very fast execution, free, called Gatsby. You might not know of it, but if you want to try them out, the link below will give you some sort of like promotion when you sign up. And then also Webull, which is the charts that I use, and they're also a broker. They have a lot of really great free features, and their software is pretty solid. And I'll put a link in the description below if you want to sign up for them as well. Okay, so let's first go to the other data. So let's just pop in here to Ortex and take a look at the short interest info. So short interest slightly down today, down almost 2%, returned 4 million shares, borrowed out another 3.2. Current short interest percent of the free float, 37.3%, still very high with that almost 2% downtick. And you can see that over here, the last reported 38.04. So obviously, yeah, still a bunch of shorts in there. The other big thing is this utilization is at 100%. And again, if you're not familiar with the utilization, 100% means that all shares available to borrow or lend in a lending program have, in fact, been lent. So good luck finding shares. Talk about times at which we might see a spike in these fails to deliver. I'm going to keep a strong eye on these, because when the utilization is high, and 100 is as high as it can get, that is when folks may feel incentivized to sell shares into the market that they don't actually have in existence, and really throw a disproportionate amount of selling pressure or supply, perceived supply, into the marketplace. Let's take a quick look at iBorrow. Let me pop this in for CLOV and see what's been happening throughout the day today. If this has been updating. Yep. So updating here, 624, as we rolled from 623 into 624. As far as interactive brokers go, it's a pretty slow day. So no change from the overnights, and then just a small borrow, 50K, and then nothing else happening, and then another 50K borrow this afternoon. Fee is getting pretty high though, which is always a big factor too in a potential short squeeze, because borrowers don't want to be borrowing shares that have an incredibly high fee, especially if the stock price starts to go against them, because then they're losing money both on the price going up, but also on the fee that they're having to pay being very high. So, but I'm sure like this big run up, honestly, what I thought happened when I was looking at this morning is, if it is legit for them to close out these fails to deliver in the pre-market just before market open, they essentially assisted in driving this price up rapidly and very, very high as a percentage gain. And then my guess is a bunch turned around and just took out a bunch of short positions in order to flood the market with a bunch of selling pressure and just ride it back down. So they pumped it by delivering on their fails to deliver, and then immediately grabbed shares to borrow and sell into the market and make money on the way down. So that's my suspicion on that as well. But more on that another time. This video is getting long enough. On the chart side of things, it has been a really chaotic few days. And again, if it is mostly driven by what I've been talking about, then it's sort of like an anomalous few days. But, it is sort of putting itself into this channel. But I don't have a ton of faith that this is going to hold. I mean, obviously it's testing it right now, but it has, if you look at it, it did test it now about 3 times, and it tested the top almost 3 times. And so, that's, pretty solid, legitimacy for a channel. But again, if a lot of this was driven basically by all of this closing out and delivering on the fails to deliver, then, I'd take that with a huge grain of salt. I don't know if that would be able to be sustained. I guess that the extent to which that influenced retail, caught the eyes of retail with these big run-ups, is another question. In terms of like the price levels, I think these are very strong. We see it consistently bouncing off here. It bounced off this 1125 level and rode itself up. Couldn't surpass the resistance at 1348 and build it as support, so it dropped back down. It caught essentially then the bottom of the channel here, but it fell through and hit resistance there against that 1232 level. Finally got support there, and then used that to roll up through the 1348 zone, and then hit the top of the channel here. So it couldn't quite stretch up that 1525, but then this morning that's exactly where it bounced off of 1525, and then quickly dropped down nearly to that 1348. So I think the price targets here are still really solid, really strong, and I would use them for potential catch zones, dip buying into price strength, that sort of thing. Expected resistance points if you want to, trim or take profit. All right, well, that will do it for this one. I appreciate you watching. I'm interested to see the the maybe not so friendly comments that I get on this one, but that's okay. I can handle it, and the comments are generally like really positive, so whatever. If we have a controversial one, we have a controversial one. But I appreciate you watching, and I will see you in the next video.